Hey, and welcome to our second part of our lesson video for properties of exponents with rational exponents. So remember, this was an in-class lesson, and I had to split it up into two parts. So this is the second part. I just got a couple examples to finish up. We're catching up on example L here. We're using our property of exponents while we have rational exponents in our expression. So we've got fractions that are exponents, but we still follow the same rules. So remember, if we have any negative exponents, we should move those variables down. So this y, we're going to move down, and this x, we're going to move up. Okay, so I've got the 12 and the x to the 2/3 that are still up top, but joining them will be x to the 1/3. Remember, it turns positive. On the bottom, we have 3y². That stays, but then joining them will be y to the 1/2. All right, now I've got repeated variables, so I want to simplify that. On the top, I've got these two x's that I can combine, and remember, to combine them, we add the exponent. So when I have 2/3 and I add 1/3, well, that gives me 3/3. That gives me 1 whole. So on the top, really all I have is 12 with an x to a power of 1. Now, we don't need that power, but I'll write it just so you can see how we added. In the denominator, I've got that 3 that's going to stay, but I've got the same thing. I've got these y's that I need to combine, and I'm going to add those exponents as well. 2 plus 1/2. Well, let me do a side note. 2 plus 1/2 would be 2.5, but remember, exponents were not allowed to give whole numbers. That's not proper. So we need to convert this. So remember, we take the denominator of 2 times the whole number 2, and that's a 4. And then we add the numerator. So 2 times 2 is 4, plus the 1 would give me a 5. Remember, we keep the same denominator, so 2.5 is the same as having 2/5. So that's actually the exponent I'm going to put on my y, is 5/2. Okay? The last thing I can do, I'm not quite ready to box my answer yet. The 12 and the 3, I should reduce those. Both of those are divisible by a 3. So let me divide out a 3. And so I'd have a 4 on top with my x to the first power. And 3 divided by 3 is just a 1, which I don't need. So I'm just going to have y to the 5/2 on the bottom. Okay? And there would be my simplified expression. Now we've got one more to look at to finish up what we did in class. Again, if you have negative exponents, we should move them down. So it looks like this y needs to come down. So 2x to the 1/4, he's staying up top. 3x staying on the bottom, but with them now we'll have y to the positive 1/3. Remember, we still have this parenthesis with a square on the outside. Now, technically, you could go ahead and start distributing that too, but just a rule of thumb, whenever I can reduce inside my parentheses, I always just try to get that out of the way. That's just, personally, that's just what I do. So here's what we've got. We've got two x's. We've got an x to the 1/4 on top, and then I have an x to the 1 power, so a whole on the bottom. So we talked about subtracting. I have a 1/4 on the top, and I have 1 whole, so I have 4/4 on the bottom. 1/4 on top, 4/4 on the bottom. If I think about what would cancel, the 1/4 on the top would go away, and I would have 3/4 left on the bottom. Okay? So now I think I'm ready to distribute that square to everything. Remember, you actually square the big numbers and you multiply, so I'll put a little times there, you multiply powers when we're distributing in. Okay? So we would have 2 squared, which is 4 on top, 3 squared, which is 9. Notice how it's not 6. Okay? 3/4 times a 2. I think I'm going to write that at the bottom. 3/4 times a whole 2, so like a 2/1. Remember, we multiply across the top. 3 times 2 is 6. 4 times 1 is 4. So I've got 6/4, but I should reduce that. They both are divisible by 2. So that would reduce to a 3/2. So that's what my power on x is going to be, 3/2. Now, I'm going to do the same thing with my y. That's a bad 3. Let me fix that. I'm doing 1/3 times another whole 2, so 2 over 1. When I go across the top, 2. When I go across the bottom, it's a 3. So I would have 2/3 on my y. Okay. So there would be my simplified expression. So this finishes up our lesson video, the last one before our quiz over property of exponents that we had. So hopefully you found this helpful, and keep learning and have fun.